Some battles you see coming a mile away. Others sneak up on you hidden behind polite smiles and dusty rulebooks. I thought moving to a quiet cabin in the woods would be the start of a peaceful new chapter in my life. I thought wrong. What began as a simple dream, living close to nature, honoring family memories, quickly turned into a high-stakes fight against a homeowners association gone rogue. I wasn't looking for trouble. But when the people in charge decided to twist the rules and threaten what mattered most, they left me no choice. In a community built on trust and tradition, it only takes one bad actor to set everything on fire. The real question wasn't just if I could save my home. It was whether I could help save Pine Hollow itself. If you had asked me a year ago where I'd be today, I never would have guessed standing barefoot on the worn front porch of my late grandfather's cabin, staring down a woman who looked like she could file a lawsuit faster than she could blink. My name's Ethan Carter. I used to spend my days hunched over screens working cybersecurity for a major tech firm in Chicago. It was all deadlines, neon lights, and city noise until Grandpa Jack passed away, leaving me the one thing money couldn't buy: freedom. The cabin was nothing special by city standards. A crooked little place tucked deep in Pine Hollow Valley. Montana, one bedroom, a rusted tin roof, walls made of ancient cedar that smelled like memories and rain. But to me, it was sacred ground. Grandpa built it with his own hands back in the 60s, long before HOAs started popping up like weeds across America. When I moved in full-time 6 months ago, I thought I'd found peace. I traded traffic jams for morning hikes, apartment alarms for birdsong. I started growing vegetables, fixing up the old fishing dock, even meeting a few neighbors, mostly retirees, a few young families looking to escape city life like me. Life was simple, honest, good. Good. Then she showed up. I first met Madeline Sharp on a rainy Tuesday. She was all sharp angles and pastel polyester, her white SUV gleaming like a spaceship against the muddy road. She didn't bother with small talk. Instead, she thrust a thick packet of papers into my hands, her manicured finger tapping aggressively on the top sheet. "Violation notice," it said in all caps bold. "Excuse me?" I asked, confused. "You are in breach of the Pine Hollow Valley HOA agreement," she snapped. "Full-time residency is prohibited. These are vacation homes, not permanent dwellings." I blinked. "I'm sorry, ma'am. This is my property. I inherited it. I own it free and clear." "Ownership is irrelevant," Madeline said with a tight smile. "You bought into a community that means you abide by our regulations. You have 30 days to vacate." I stared at her, rain dripping off the brim of my ball cap. "My grandfather built this place before Pine Hollow even had an HOA." She gave a little shrug. "Regulations evolve. You'll need to comply." I watched her drive off, tires spinning mud onto my driveway. The packet of papers flapped in the wind like a taunt. Inside the cabin, I sat at Grandpa's old kitchen table, flipping through the documents. My hands shook, not from fear, but from fury. There was no clause mentioning my specific property, no grandfather exemption, no clear zoning law cited, just pages of vague community standards and thinly veiled threats. That night, I called Sophie Lane, my closest neighbor, and a young attorney who'd left her high-profile job in New York to start over in Montana. We'd become friends over shared cups of bad instant coffee and war stories about city life. After reading the papers, Sophie shook her head. "Ethan, this isn't about community preservation. This is a power move. They're targeting properties like yours, the old ones, the unregulated ones. If they push you out, they can rezone, flip it to a developer and make a fortune." I stared at her. "They're trying to steal my home." Sophie nodded grimly. "Not if we fight back." That night, as the wind howled through the pines and the rain battered the tin roof, I made a decision. I wasn't going to roll over and hand my family's legacy to a bunch of bullies with clipboards. This cabin wasn't just a building. It was the smell of wood smoke in the winter, the creek where I learned to fish, the porch where Grandpa Jack taught me how to play the harmonica badly. This was my home, and I was ready to fight for it. The next morning, the valley woke to a new war. One fought not with weapons but with paperwork, petty threats, and whispered rumors. First came the notices. Madeline had wasted no time. Over the next few days, I found a constant parade of fluorescent violation slips taped to my cabin door, my mailbox, even the old oak tree by the driveway. Infractions ranged from improper storage of firewood to unsanctioned vegetable garden to my personal favorite, visual disharmony, exterior, paint color fading. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. But mostly, I wanted to win. With Sophie's help, I gathered everything: the original deed from 1965, the plat map showing my cabin outside the original HOA boundaries, state zoning laws, even historic property tax records. Grandpa Jack had kept in a battered metal box labeled "in case of bureaucrats." Sophie filed a cease and desist letter with the HOA's law firm within days. It was short, sharp, and loaded with legal grenades. Any further attempt to harass or intimidate Mr. Carter will be met with immediate litigation under Montana property protection statutes. Meanwhile, word spread fast. Neighbors who once waved hello now avoided my gaze, afraid of becoming Madeline's next target. Only a few brave souls. Sophie, an old fisherman named Walt, and a young couple who lived 2 cabins down stayed friendly. They brought over casseroles, firewood, and whispered encouragements. "Don't let her run you out, kid," Walt said one night, handing me a bottle of homemade apple cider. "This valley's seen folks like her before. They don't last." But Madeline wasn't just playing the long game. She started staging community meetings without notice, rallying whoever she could under the banner of protecting Pine Hollow values. Petitions circulated, calling for stricter enforcement fines, and even the emergency revocation of properties deemed non-compliant. One evening, as I drove back from town with supplies, I spotted a brand new sign hammered into the side of the private road leading up to my cabin. "Authorized vacation properties only. Violators will be prosecuted." My jaw tightened. This wasn't about rules anymore. This was about control. I pulled into the driveway to find Sophie waiting for me, sitting on my porch swing with a folder in her lap and a grim look on her face. "You need to see this," she said, handing me the papers. "I pulled some filings from the county clerk's office today. Turns out Madeline's real goal isn't about preserving the vacation character of Pine Hollow." I flipped through the documents: land surveys, rezoning requests, a development proposal stamped with the logo of a major real estate conglomerate. "They're trying to push out the old owners," Sophie continued. "Clear the land, build a luxury resort." I stared at her, the realization sinking in like a knife. This wasn't personal. It was business. "And you," Sophie said, her voice hardening, "are the last holdout standing between them and a multi-million-dollar payday." For a moment, the weight of it all pressed down on me. One man, one cabin against a machine that had money, lawyers, and local influence on its side. But then, I looked at the sunset spilling gold through the trees Grandpa Jack had planted. I thought of the creek, where I first learned to fish, the porch, where we played cards late into summer nights. And I realized something Madeline Sharp never would. "Some things aren't for sale." I met Sophie's gaze. "So, what's our next move?" She smiled grimly. "We don't just defend your cabin. We go on the offensive." By the time the next Pine Hollow HOA meeting rolled around, the stakes couldn't have been higher. Madeline had called an emergency vote to authorize immediate enforcement actions, including property reclamation procedures against non-compliant owners, meaning me. Word had it she even hired a private security company to supervise evictions, as if this were some kind of hostile occupation. But she wasn't expecting what Sophie and I had planned. We arrived early that evening, carrying 2 heavy file boxes. Inside were copies of everything: original deeds, grandfather clauses, zoning exceptions, historic maps, and, crucially, the real estate development proposals Madeline had been quietly trying to push through under everyone's noses. The community center buzzed with tension as neighbors trickled in, whispering behind cupped hands. Madeline stood at the front, a smug smile plastered across her face, a stack of pre-printed ballots ready to go, Behind her sat the board, most of whom looked visibly nervous. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice dripping with forced sweetness. "Thank you for coming. Tonight we will vote to preserve the integrity and future of Pine Hollow." Sophie nudged me. "Your turn." I stood up. "Before we vote," I said loudly, carrying my boxes to the front, "there's something the community deserves to know." Madeline's smile faltered slightly. I placed the documents on the center table and started handing them out. "This isn't about grass height or paint colors," I said, my voice steady, but carrying through the hall. "This is about a plan to bulldoze everything that makes Pine Hollow special and replace it with private condos and a luxury resort." Gasps rippled through the room. One by one, I laid out the evidence: Madeline's undeclared partnerships, her backdoor meetings with developers, her attempts to force legacy owners like myself off their land. Sophie pulled up a PowerPoint presentation on a portable screen showing the land use applications Madeline had filed under a shell corporation she controlled. People started whispering angrily, then openly confronting her. "You said it was about protecting the community. You lied to us. You tried to evict people for your own profit." Madeline's mask cracked. Her face flushed deep red as she stumbled over half-baked denials. I was protecting property values," she screeched. "You don't understand the pressure we're under to modernize." At that moment, Walt stood up in the back of the room, slow, steady, every eye turning toward him. "We understand just fine," he said, his voice gravelly but clear. "You tried to sell out your neighbors. You forgot this is a community, not a commodity." A thunderous round of applause erupted. Madeline cornered, and exposed tried one last desperate move. "This is slander. You'll all be sued." But Sophie, calm as ever, stepped forward, legal folder in hand. "Actually," she said coolly, "we've filed a preliminary injunction with the county. Effective immediately. The HOA board is prohibited from taking any enforcement actions related to property occupancy or residency until a full investigation is complete." Madeline's jaw dropped. "And as for you personally," Sophie continued, "several homeowners, including Mr. Carter here, are preparing a civil suit for harassment, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty." It was over. The board voted unanimously to suspend Madeline from her position pending a formal review. By the end of the night, she had packed up her things and left the hall. Not with the triumphant march she expected, but with her head down amid a rising tide of angry neighbors. When the meeting ended, people crowded around me, shaking my hand, clapping me on the back, offering apologies. Thanks. Even homemade pies. Pine Hollow had woken up, and it wasn't going back to sleep. As Sophie and I stood on the porch, watching the sunset behind the mountains, she nudged me and said, "You didn't just save a cabin today." I smiled. "No, I said we saved a community."